All right, we are almost at the last chapter. Yay, yay, yay. Okay. That's enough, he finally said. I can face them now. Inside we danced again. Soon it will be time for me to sing. After that, I'll either be surrounded by worshipping music lovers, or I shall be shunned by all. Surrounded, I said. And I would never shun you. I wonder. You may shun me if you know the truth. He took a breath and was suddenly quite formal. I apologize if I unintentionally raise your expectations, but I resolve never to marry. Wait, who said this? Da-da-da-da-da. Interesting. So the ball hadn't been his idea. I stiffened at the triumph laugh. You didn't mislead me. I only been saving stories for home. I'll tell them. The prince said this and this and this, and said thus and so, and back to him. And mother, I made him laugh. I made our prince laugh, and father, he danced with me one night, almost no one except me. What did he wear, my sister will want to know. Did he have his sword with him? Always, father will ask. Shar tightened his hold on my waist. Marriage is supposed to be forever, but friendships can be forever too. Will you? I felt something at the back of my head. Hattie danced nearby with Earl of Denbigh, snatched off my mask, and I let go of Shar and covered my face with my hands, but not quick enough. Chapter 29. Ella! Hattie shrieked. Shar gasped. Ella? I broke away from him and began to run as the clock struck midnight. Shar would have caught me in a moment, but Hattie mustn't have held him somewhere. Outside, a huge pumpkin stood useless in the line of carriages. I continued to flee. A white rat skittered across my path. Somewhere I lost one of my slippers. I ran listening for pursuers. At home, maybe Mandy would know what to do. Or I'd hide in the cellar, in the stable somewhere. How could I have gone to the balls to put Shar and Kyria in such danger? Mandy, I shouted as soon as I reached the manor. A servant stared at me, and I ran into the kitchen. I've endangered Shar again, and Kyria. What should I do? Pack your things, Mandy said, as soon as she understood my rushed explanation. Where shall I go? I'll come with you. We'll find work as cooks. Hurry. Can't you pack for us by magic? She'd done it before. It was just small magic. Nothing is small magic in a moment like this. Go, she yelled. Fairies, I groaned. I raced to my room and began to throw things into my carpet bag. I had little. It would be the work of a minute. I heard the door open downstairs and there were voices. We'd never managed to leave. I tore off my ball gown and donned my tattered servant wear, rubbing my sooty skirt across my face. Over my hair, I tied a ragged length of linen. Nancy appeared at my door. It's the prince. He wants to see everyone. I didn't move. She giggled nervously. He won't eat us. At least I hope not. Come, come, come. I followed her, my heart drumming loud enough to drown out all my thoughts. He stood in the hall with his knights and our entire household. In the midst of all of what was more important, I hated him to see me covered in rags and cinder. I stationed myself behind the tallest manservant, but Shar and the knights walked among us, straining for a new disguise of servant and simpleton. I stuck out my fist and stared out vacantly. Sir Stephen found me. Here's a maid, he said. Come, lass. He took my hand and pulled me to Shar. Ella, why are you dressed so? Your Majesty, I was about to deny my name, but Hattie spoke. That's only Cinder. She's the scullery maid, she said. Sire, wouldn't you care for a refreshment since you're here? She's a scullery maid of no account, but our cook Mandy has cakes fit for a prince. The door wasn't far. Sir Stephen held my hand. I pulled, but couldn't break away. Lass, Shar said to me, I won't hurt you no matter what. He cupped his hands under my chin and tilted my face up to him. I wanted to catch his hand and kiss it. As soon as we touched, I knew he recognized me. He brought my slipper out of his cloak. It belonged to Ella. It will only fit her alone, whether she is a scullery maid or a duchess. A chair was brought. I'd wished for a normal-sized foot. That was my slipper, Hattie said. It's been missing for years. Your feet are too big, Olive blurted. Try it, Char told Hattie. I lost it because it kept falling off. She sat and removed her own slipper. I caught the unfamiliar smell of her feet. Eek. She couldn't wedge her toes into it. I'm younger than Hattie, Olive said, so my feet are probably smaller. They were bigger. Now it was my turn. Char knelt, holding the slipper, and I extended my foot as he guided it. The slipper fit perfectly, of course. What was I going to do? His face was close to mine. He must have seen my terror. You needn't be Ella if you don't want to, he said softly. He was so good to me. I'm not, I said, but in spite of myself, tears streamed down my face. I saw hope spread across his face. That letter was rubbish, a trick. He glared at Hattie, then turned to me. His look probing. Do you love me? He asked still softly. Tell me, in order. I had to answer. I do. I was sobbing and smiling at once. How was I going to give him up again? Char was jubilant. His voice rang out. Then marry me! Another order. I nodded and continued to weep, but my hands found way to his. Don't marry him, Ella, Hattie commanded, giving my name away for once and all. I withdrew from my hands. I can't, I said. Perhaps Hattie would serve us. Hattie, don't be a fool, Mum Olga snapped. Don't you want to be a stepsister of the Queen and make her give you whatever you like? She smiled at me. His Highness is kind enough to want to marry you, Ella, my sweet. It had begun. The curse would make Hattie and Mum Olga as grand as they wanted to be, and it would provide us endless wealth for Olive. Char was looking at me with such gladness, and I loved him so. It was the cause of his joy and would be the cause of his destruction, a secret delivered to his enemies. A letter written in my own hand, a covert signal given to me, poison in his glass, a dagger in his ribs, a fall. Marry me, Ella, he said again, in order. The order, a whisper now. Say you'll marry me. Anyone else could have said yes or no. This wasn't a royal command. Char probably had no idea he was giving me an order. But I had to obey. Wanted to obey. Hated to harm him. Wanted to marry him. I was confused. I wouldn't destroy my love. Goodness, my nose is so itchy. I wouldn't destroy my love and my land. They were in danger, and no one could rescue them. We were all doomed, all cursed. Char was too precious at heart, too precious to lose, too precious to betray, too precious to marry, too precious to kill, too precious to obey. Words rose in me, filled my mouth, pushed against my lips. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I love you. Yes, 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 yes. I swallowed, forcing them down, but they tore at my throat. A strangled noise erupted from me, but not words, not consent. He put a hand on my shoulder. I must have frightened him, but I couldn't see his face. My vision had turned inward. I heard Lucinda's voice. My gift to Ella... Well, interesting. I heard Lucinda's voice. My gift to Ella is obedience. She will always be obedient. I saw Mandy telling me to eat my birthday cake. I saw Sif leering at me. No need to be persuasive with this one. I'd cook it. I'd cook itself. It would cook itself if we told it to. I saw Olive counting my coins. Mum Olga standing over me while I scrubbed in the courtyard. Hattie wearing Mom's necklace. I'd eaten the cake, drunk the tonic, given up the necklace, slaved for my stepmom, let Olive suck me dry. They had gotten all they wanted, and they weren't going to get Char. Never, never. Be obedient, marry him, say yes, say yes, say yes. The tears streamed from my eyes. They were like acid, burning my cheeks. Another simile. My mouth filled with liquid, bile, and blood from biting my tongue, salty and sweet. In spite of myself, I opened my mouth. Consent had won, obedience had won, but I clamped my hand over my mouth. My yes was stillborn. I remembered Shar at my mother's funeral, waiting for me while I wept, grieving mother too. I heard his promise, and soon I shall catch the centaur and give it to you. I saw him binding Sif's ankles. I saw him buttonless, doublet flapping, bow to father after we had flown down the stair rails. I saw the ball and the King Gerald beaming at his son, and hope for a future in Kyria. Say yes and be happy. Say yes and live. Obey, marry him. I began to rock in my chair, forward, and the words were about to come. Back I reeled them in. Faster and faster the legs of the chair thudded on the tiles and pounded my ears. Marry him, I won't. Marry him, I won't, they screamed back at me. Then I lost sense of all. I went on rocking and crying, but my thoughts buried within, concentrated in a deep point in my chest, where there was room for only one truth. I must save Shar. No, I shouted. I won't marry you. I won't do it. No one can force me. I swallowed and wiped my mouth on my filthy sleeve. I leaped up, ready to defy anyone. Who would force you? Shar sounded shocked. No matter who, I won't. They can't make me. No one can make me. I won't marry you. Olive said, she'll marry you. You told her to. She has to listen. She laughed. Marry him and give me your money. I won't. Stop ordering me to. I was still shouting. I wanted to march, wave banners. Shar wouldn't not die because of me. Shar would live. Shar would live and prosper. She does not have to marry me, he said. Hush, Olive, Hattie said. Ella, go to your room. His Majesty can have no further need of you. Shar said, I have great need of her. Hush, Hattie, I said, intoxicated with my success. I don't want to go to my room. Everyone must know that I shan't marry the prince. I ran out the door to the street, opened it. I won't marry the prince. I turned back to the hall. I shan't marry. I kissed his cheek. He was safe from me. I turned my head and he kissed me on the mouth. And the kiss swept through me, and I clung to him, trembling. From behind me, Hattie shrilled, Go to your room this instant. I command you. I ignored her, but Shar pulled away. Why won't you marry me? Why not, if you love me? I'm cursed. You wouldn't be safe if I was your wife. What was I saying? I hadn't told anyone about this curse since I was 8. Mother had forbid it. Had someone told me to? No one had. Then why? My thoughts wouldn't settle. I wasn't going to marry Shar. That was certain. He had looked so handsome, smiling from our kiss. Then, frowning confusion, a smug of my soot on his nose, I wiped it off. Saving him made him more mine than ever. Could my refusal meant the spell was broken? Could it? I took stock of myself. I did feel different, larger, fuller, more complete, no longer divided against myself. Compulsion to comply against every wish. Larger but lighter, much lighter, a burden shed, a massive burden. I defied Olive's commands as well as Shar's. And Hattie had sent me into my room, but I was still here. I had told my secret, but I felt no dizziness, no pain. You're free. The curse is over, love. Mandy was at my side, hugging me. You rescued yourself when you rescued the prince. I'm that proud and glad, sweet. I could shout. I had been able to break my own curse myself. I'd had reason enough. Love is enough to do it. To find the will and the strength. My safety from the ogres hadn't been enough. Especially not with the guards about. My slavery to Mom's Olga hadn't been enough. Kyria was enough. Shar was enough. Now that it was over, ended forever, I was made anew. Ella, just Ella. Not Ella the slave. Not the scullery maid. Not Leela. Not Eleanor. Just Ella. Myself unto myself. One, me. I tore off the rag that covered my hair. Then I curtsied to Shar. When you asked for my hand a few minutes ago, I was still too young to marry. I looked up at him and smiled now. I am older now, so much older, that not only I can marry you, but I beg you to marry me. I knelt and took his hand. He didn't let me kneel before him. He pulled me up into a kiss again. I took that to signify his consent. That's the end, but I'm gonna read the epilogue. Yoo-hoo! I love this ending. Epilogue, which comes after the story. In a month we were married. For the ceremony I wear my first new gown in a year, and mother's necklace, which I reclaimed from Hattie. After my deception had been explained to them, King Gerald and Queen Daria welcomed me joyously into the royal family. My stepfamily was not invited to the wedding and had to celebrate, if they wished, in the streets with the rest of Frau. Father was invited, but he was traveling and didn't receive the invitation till it was too late. Erida did attend. We renewed our friendship and swore to visit each other often, an oath we've kept fully. All the exotic peoples, except ogres, were represented at the ceremony. Slanen gave me a new pottery piece by Agulin, an elf child embracing a tree. The toddler who had rescued was there too. Since gnomes grew more slowly than humans, he still looked quite tiny. Uix came too, and was responsible for keeping our animal guest, Apple, from galloping the lengths of the palace. Although we didn't invite Lucinda, she arrived anyway with a gift. No need for a gift, Shar and I chimed together. Remember when you were a squirrel, Mandy said? But the gift was what Father would have called a fairy trifle, in a box no larger than my thumbnail, which grew or shrank to accommodate whatever it was called upon to hold. Wonderfully useful and not harmful at all. We thanked Lucinda enthusiastically, but until she glowed with pleasure. In time, Hattie became reconciled with our marriage and used her connections to us to her best advantage. She never married, but Olive did. A garrulous widower fell in love with her unwavering attention. When she demanded that he talk to her, he'd tell her about his triumphs, his enemies, his opinions, and everything. She wasn't anxious to wed. In exchange for her consent, he paid her 20 kgs or coins every day and served a white cake with every meal. She must be getting real fat. Father and Mama Olga continued love at a distance. After my marriage, he'd become successful again, trading on the respect commands by the royal family. Shar watched over him and intervened when necessary to save him or his victims from the consequences of his mishaps. Mandy lived with us as a cook and a godmother for our children, and secret performers of small magic to protect us from colds, broken crockery, and the sun-dry inconveniences of royal households. Nancy lived at the palace too, and commanded a legion of servants, several of whom were in charge of polishing stair rails for their sliding monarchs. I refused to become a princess, but adopted the title of court lingist and cook's helper. I also refused to stay at home when Shar traveled, and learned every language and dialect that came our way. When we left the children behind, my magic book kept us informed on their doings. Decisions were a delight after the curse. I loved having the power to say yes or no, and refusing anything was a power and a special pleasure. My contrariness kept Shar laughing, and his goodness kept me in love with him. And so, with laughter and love, we lived happily ever after. The end. We've finished! Because, if you see, the rest of it's just discussion questions. Wonderful. So, I want you to comment with 1, how you like the story, and 2, what do you think, how would you handle if you had a curse like that? Because I think I would hate it, absolutely hate it. How would you feel?